Welcome to our session, How AI is Driving Data Innovation. I'm Matt Turner. I'm the Director of Industry Strategy at Alation, and it's great to be here and be part of the Data Innovation Summit. I'm actually joining you from New York City, so it's a little early in the morning for me, but it's great to see all of you that are online, and also say hello to everybody that's there in Stockholm. Hope we can all be together for the next version of this. And we've got some great content for you. We're going to be talking about the role of data, something you've probably already heard if you listen to the keynotes, and how AI can not only benefit from data or how important it is, but also AI might be the cause or the solution to some of our problems. I have a lot to get through, and I'm going to cover it, but I don't want this to be one way. If you have comments or questions, or you want to follow along on Twitter, please do post something, and I'll try to get to it as we get through it. But I'm going to get started and take you through a little bit of the most obvious place to start, which is the importance of data in the context of AI. And when I'm giving a talk like this, I like to get out and do some research, see what people are saying. And it's always nice when almost immediately I find something that kind of encapsulates the whole talk. So here's an article from the Harvard Business Review, which kind of says it all. If your data is bad, your machine learning tools are useless. And this is from Thomas Redman, the data doc. And I also like to date these things because we've been through a lot these days, and I don't know if people know, but we're in 2021, about to be 2022, and this is way back in 2018. And actually quite a lot's happened since then, but not that much is different from this kind of comment. So Thomas says, to properly train a predictive model, historical data must meet exceptionally broad and high quality standards. Makes sense, lays it out, but the reason this is a whole article in the Harvard Business Review is that Thomas goes into what it means to have those broad and high quality standards. Not just the values of the data, making sure they're correct, not duplicated, not multiple values, but the breadth and depth of data needed to actually answer the machine learning and AI goals that you're setting out to. Representative data, wide range of data, so that what you actually get are real answers, not something that's narrow or even worse, potentially biased. Picking up that same theme, kind of still talking about it now, back in just last year, is an article from TDWI from the Upside. This is about dumbing down artificial intelligence with bad data. And again, we've got the same kind of theme. This is about what goes into the data is what you're going to get out, but Bill takes a little bit further. It says that if the AI processes are given data that's not unique, accurate, consistent, and timely, so again, adding to that list of things you need to do to get your data right before you can use machine learning, these processes will not produce reliable results and therefore will lead to unwanted business outcomes. So I like that for a number of reasons. First of all, we're looking at the role of data, but we're seeing what can happen. The unwanted business outcomes is, I think, just a great understatement for really serious effects. Serious business impact from using data, automating things, getting into a loop without that strong foundation. And of course, to get the strong foundation, another voice for how much work you have to do. I mean, it could seem like we're all kind of here in this kind of take from XQCD. Randall has a certain humor, so I hope you like it, but it's about machine learning, right? You pour data into this big pile of linear algebra, collect it and get the answers. But what if you don't like the answers? Well, you just stir the pile, redo it with the data. That might be one answer, but I kind of like this answer from Susan Landa. So Susan is the director of Advanced Global Technology at AGCO. They make really big farm machinery, agricultural machinery. And if you're following that world, you know that that's an incredibly rich, data rich, and innovation rich world. And so she, in that context of agriculture, is very uniquely qualified to make this statement, that bad data is like manure. It gets everywhere. And I've never been so happy at a conference is when I saw her put up this slide. And kind of echoing the same comments that we're exploring here, that if you're going to go down this data-driven machine learning AI journey, she had a very, very specific word of advice. Clean up the data before you go on this journey. So obviously data is important. It's the foundation for AI. It's what we're going at. And at this point, I went pause and say, is there some other phrase? Is it something that you might think? But if you guys saw the keynote this morning, you've already heard the phrase, the data is the new oil. And again, I like to point out, when we first started hearing this, which it may be even earlier than this, but I've certainly found this one from 2014, which now is almost a decade ago. Again, time's going quickly for us in the data world. But if you look now, and you look for something like data neural infographic, you see 21 million results. This is a really common thought. And if it's so common, the question might arise, well, why aren't we there yet? I mean, why isn't it as simple as this infographic where you just back up the data pump over your reservoir of data and start pumping out that data and feeding it to your machine learning algorithms, your AI engines, getting great results, and whoop, we're all there. So it's not that easy. There are lots of cultural reasons, which the other keynote this morning explored, the gap between the old school and the new school. But there's also the simple fact that working with data is hard. So to look at some of these answers, I'm going to turn to my friend Alan. Alan Morrison was a senior research fellow at PricewaterhouseCoopers, but now he's an independent consultant. And a couple of years ago, he gave a great talk that really lays out the problem. And one of the slides from his talk is this one, where he just says, look, over time, we've never really retired anything. If we started back in digitization in the enterprise in the 1970s, we had custom code, databases, OSs, hardware. We just kept adding it. Added more databases, added more custom code, added a new layer, until we have tens of thousands of databases, and even just a moderately sized enterprise. And we have millions and millions of lines of custom code, all stacked on top of it, the new things like the solutions and the SaaS providers and the input from everything we have. And this is where we're putting this new generation. Things like IoT, the signal data, knowledge graphs to help us understand things, and all these AI capabilities, they're just layered on top of the existing stack. And this is why it's really the problem. It's not so much the data itself, it's the complexity of our current environment. The complexity that there's huge numbers of data sets. There's similar and duplicate data everywhere. And that we all need to understand, in order to use it, and to understand every single data point, particularly when we're entering into what we explored at the beginning, the need for high quality input for these, so that we can trust them, so we can use them. And not only do we need to understand every data point, but we need to understand where it came from. And then here's the real trick. We need to make sure everybody can access this data. If we do this in a locked up way, if we make the perfect data set, but only a few people can get it, that's not going to scale at the enterprise, across the enterprise. Everyone needs access to the data. We need to ensure that they access the right data. So it's no wonder that in a survey we did, this is actually our Alation founder was writing about this survey about data culture, which is this combined practice of really thinking about using data, that in this survey, people really talked about data and the impact it has on AI. In fact, one of the stats from the survey is, are you concerned about the data quality issues impeding your successful implementation? Is it a barrier? And the answer is a resounding yes. Close to 90% of the people said they absolutely have concerns about it. There was another stat in here that talked about data quality and biases in the models, and that was even higher. It's clearly we're at a point where we really understand the value of data, but we've got a lot of challenges to address it. And for me, when I think about the answer and being a little cheeky about it, the answer is to know your data so you can use your data with AI and machine learning. You need to know your data using AI. It's a hard problem. Let's see if we can scale it. So this is really back into our kind of sweet spot. So as I mentioned, Alation, the company I work for, is actually a data catalog company. We have a vision to empower people to make better decisions using data, and actually to do that and build a data culture in our customers where people can find the data they need, understand the data, so promote data literacy, and know how to use it. And this kind of broad vision that we have isn't just an individual or a small vision. When we start to scale this to the enterprise, you start to see the fact that you need to have machine learning. You need to have artificial intelligence to actually take and tackle a very, very complex problem that we just talked about and deliver this kind of vision around data culture. And furthermore, when you talk about decision-making at an enterprise level, then you need to be able to feed the data into these models and scale that out. Again, the other role of AI and machine learning. So from the very start, we understood the nature of this problem. There's simply too much data. If you look at the data and you're trying to navigate through it, it's not going to be something you can get there with manual curation. And if you were able to inventory and put it together, search and simple manual efforts to find everything wouldn't be enough. There's tens of thousands of tables would simply defeat an individual person. We'd be back at the same spot we are, which is where we are now, where the most amount of time that analysts spend is getting and finding the right data. So there's really a need for an intelligent engine that relies on the clues and gives you understanding of the data and augments your own activity so you can scale. And that's what we've built. So we built into Alation the behavioral analysis engine. It's AI that just simply makes better data, makes that data better. Inside the engine, it learns from all the data, all the metadata, the use of the metadata, and all the patterns of the usage, and it powers creating that data inventory, enabling people to do the data discovery, and allowing people to get access to the data. So one of the most important things to using AI using data to power AI is addressing all of your data. And understanding your data, knowing your data at scale is a very, very important place where we use machine learning. It helps us map the data sources and the lineage. So actually create that map of all your data from your sources. It adds meaning and helps you build the vocabularies and glossaries, meaning in terms of human readable titles for fields, for instance. But it also can help you know that your data is going to have high quality. It can flag potentially inconsistent data, look for collisions, and even identify sensitive data. And because it's a true machine learning approach, we're always improving, we're always iterating. And I've got two examples here talking about some of this in action. You can see from the left, on the right, and the top, that when you typically look at data, you have obscure column names. It's something you're going to see everywhere across an enterprise. And because we're using machine learning, we can abstract, we can create, and you can see the ones in the yellows are the ones that machine learning has actually created. And we can know that things are ABV might be alcohol by volume. And then when people use a system and the green indicates that somebody's confirmed it, machine learning algorithm learns, gets to know your data, and can make better decisions down the line. And similarly with PII, can understand the characteristics of data. When it discovers a new field, can actually flag it, start off workflows like and others know that they need to take action and handle this sensitive data, maybe even automatically apply policy. And a good example of this is from Pfizer. Our customer Pfizer created a large system, a data analytics system, to go across their very, very comprehensive data sets and deliver and look for insights into potentially misdiagnoses for patients and other places where drugs and the treatments that they make could be applied. And the quote directly from Julie Schiffman here, which is, data has become an extremely powerful currency for any company. And what we were finding is the data was very fragmented. That's really a big understatement. So the data sets we're talking about here are everything from the research, the raw research, the actual journals, the science bench notebooks, all of that information, the actual materials, and the drug information, and then the sensitive information about the patient outcomes and even the impact of certain treatments. All of that information comprised up to million. It turned out that all that information added up to millions of sources that needed to be understood, and only machine learning can go and actually understand all that data. And the result is that they were able to, and if you read the article closely, you can see the results is that they're able to apply machine learning algorithms to build models to identify previously undiagnosed conditions. Great outcome, but a lot of work on the data side to get it in order, and then scaling out that impact. Okay, so once we have it all together, the other half is to use AI to understand the user context. Let's understand what people are looking for. Learn from the behavior of all your users, surface the right data for them, for their groups. Allow people to use natural language, communicate with data in a way that they don't need arcane languages. And then of course that leverages all that work we did to generate titles, glossaries, lexicons. And then some interesting things are not just suggesting the right component of data, but actually suggesting the right way to use it. And we've got two examples here. We have the search that's using the glossaries to understand that in this context, financial data, and if you're starting to type profitability, you're probably going all the way there. Let's autocomplete it. And not only that, let's bring you in the tables, let's bring you everything we've identified around that actual term. So not using text anymore, but natural language and concepts. And then another really cool feature is that when we actually go out and look at all the data, we not only take the structures, but understand how it's used with something called query log ingestion. And we apply machine learning to that query log ingestion to create an understanding of how the data is actually put into action. So in this case, you can look at all the queries that are there and you can build on the queries, but a really interesting one is joins. How do people actually put these data, how do people use this table, and how do they use it in the context of their work? And that leads you to this additional really great information about your data, which how do people use it? And that complements the original structure and schema. And this kind of smarts was really important for Salesforce. We helped Salesforce build what they call their unified smart data catalog to help them address a growing data complexity problem. And as you can imagine, given Salesforce scale, that's not just because they're very large, but because they're continually acquisitive, adding new features, adding new partners, adding new inputs. And the data set grows and grows and grows. And like anywhere, it's not just all systems. It's one of my favorite talks because Pavan talks about the need to also integrate spreadsheets. And by putting it all together, which is a big task, then the real value for them, though, was that because it's such a large, complex data set, when users actually go into the system, this machine learning, so I'll just give you the quote, machine learning that supports our stewardship, so the people that manage the data and the business analysts, the people that put into action, the machine learning supports them by surfacing the most relevant information within the context of the business workflows. So stewards automatically get to see things they need to take care of, like we talked about with PII information, and business analysts are always driven and drawn to not just the data they can use, but how they can use it. And the key thing is, for Pavan, is this has really allowed our communities to scale. So again, this notion of we're looking at data, we're looking at complexity of data, but we need to be able to scale it and scale its use. And finally, AI can help us make connections. So everything we actually do at the end of the day is about us, people doing our jobs. And the AI and working with the data can actually make that all easier. So lexicons and glossaries, this is about speeding stewardship, getting the people that need to take care, make sure the values are correct, a head start. Usage patterns can not only help people get to the right data, but can surface experts and promote collaboration. People that know about the data by their use of the data or that have actually contributed to it can be pointed out, and through algorithms can actually be identified. And of course, there's something called active data governance. And this is using machine learning to make sure that through every stage of the interaction with the data, everyone knows the data can be trusted and they know how to use it. And this is just a quick snapshot from some of this in action. You can see the top users. And then every time we look at a piece of data, you can actually spawn off the conversations and perhaps ask the right question to the right person in your organization at scale. And this is really important for customer FLSmidth. They're a minerals and cement company based down in Denmark. And turns out they've been at the forefront of innovation for a long time. That screenshot below the logo is actually from their About FLSmidth video, where they talked about some of the early digitization they did in the 1980s. But they've taken it forward, and this kind of collaboration, and Umid, who worked at FLSmidth, was kind enough to share the impact of some of this with us, where he talks about this collaboration. Alation makes it easier for people to find the experts, discuss things related to data, and contribute to documenting information about the data as a team. And all that's built up to enable us to work with data and put it into action with these models. So what's the secret to delivering AI in your organization? Well, it's to use AI for all your data. You can tackle these complex data landscapes, surface the right data, and ensure that your models, machine learning and AI have the right fuel for the job. So I'm going to take a pause for a second and see if we have some questions. Oops, hopefully that worked out. Oh, it was just a question for questions. All right, well, if anybody's in the audience and has a question, happy to have a discussion. And if not, I think we'll just wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this conversation about data and AI. And just to leave you with some thoughts about what's next, I invite you to visit our booth, Alation's here at the Data Innovation Summit. We are on the online section, but we hope to be there in the future. I can also invite you to sign up for a weekly demo. Come see Alation in action, and don't be shy. Feel free to contact us anytime. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the talk, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Data Innovations Conference. Thanks.